get serious about building content sites and building a profitable business online? Welcome to the Niche Website Builders Podcast. We bring you the latest field-tested tips, tricks, and strategies for building a profitable online asset. We interview industry experts, share customer success stories, and reveal our own experiences working on hundreds of sites to inspire and motivate you to make something happen. Let's do this.
Welcome to the Niche Website Builders Podcast, everyone. Today we have Nick Eubanks. Now, we cover a lot of things in this podcast that can directly help you as an affiliate website owner. The first thing we cover is some of his e-commerce work in the past, how he was able to essentially grow and scale a traffic cone website. We go through memberships as an affiliate site owner, how you can potentially have your own membership for that monthly recurring revenue. We dive into a neat tactic you can use with Google Search Console for increasing what is termed keyword spread. So keyword spread essentially being ranking for more keywords on your website without actually adding new content or adding new pages to the site. We cover his philosophy around the do follow link and how much he hates the term do follow. I think the most valuable part of this podcast is near the end when we talk about authorship for affiliate sites. So obviously now with Google, we're always looking to increase what we call EAT, our expertise, authority, and trust. And he goes into detail about the personas he's built, the idea of authorship on websites, and essentially having articles and posts that are by certain authors that link to certain pages and things like that. So he even details how he's found adding authorship to websites can help bring you out of Google penalties as well. And then we finish with covering the idea of having a second author on a post, someone who maybe is medically reviewed or an expert within your field that is able to essentially cross-reference and check and put their name on the post to provide their expertise on the topic. So enjoy.
This episode is brought to you by Niche Website Builders, an agency dedicated to helping people just like you build profitable content sites. Niche Website Builders are the hands-off content site marketing agency you always wished existed. It's run by content site marketers for content site marketers, and they help both investors and individuals alike build profitable online properties. They provide a fully outsourced approach to content creation, link building, and done-for-you website builds, the same approach they use on their own six-figure portfolios. For example, their content packages come with a proprietary keyword research process, are written by in-house native English speakers, formatted using templates proven to convert, and uploaded to WordPress with affiliate links added so that all you need to do is hit the publish button. Check them out at nichewebsite.builders/show. That's nichewebsite.builders/show and fill out the form to get coupon codes for 10% more content or a 10% discount on links with your first order sent right to your inbox.
All right. Welcome to the Niche Website Builders Podcast. Today we have Nick Eubanks. Welcome, Nick. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
No, it's awesome to have you here. So you are obviously highly recommended by Charles Float, who we had on a few weeks ago. So for anyone who's not sure about you, what you do, maybe your background, could you please just maybe give us a brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so I'm currently the general partner at a venture studio that is focused on buying, building, and operating digital assets, mainly digital assets. We've got some in real life businesses, like there's a wellness center, in the building that my wife actually operates as a licensed therapist, and like there's actual human beings. It's crazy for like talking to affiliate website and niche website people. Like there's like, real human beings that come into this business and transact in person. Very strange stuff, but otherwise it's mainly digital. Built and sold two software companies, I guess I can call them, but they were mainly content management systems with more niche audiences, starting in 2009 and then 2012, and then did a 5-year stint in e-commerce, selling the least sexy product that has ever existed, traffic cones, parking blocks, speed bumps, safety vests, but was able to grow that to 30 million in revenue in 5 years before jumping into the agency world full time for a little bit. And So still in one of the partners hat from the future, which is the agency right underneath my feet, but don't really work there much anymore. So we acquired two agencies in 2018. Webris was one of those. Ryan Stewart's pretty well known
Mm.
in a lot of SEO circles. Brilliant, brilliant guy, brilliant SEO. And then last July, we bought a paid media agency called Plush Digital in Los Angeles. And with that, I got to move off the org chart and be a lazy agency owner in just the sense that I don't work there anymore, and been focused on building new stuff.
All right, circle back a bit. You mentioned you were selling traffic cones and and roadblocks as an e-commerce store.
Yeah, so trafficsafetystore.com was a 10-year-old business when I joined, and they were it was being run by a brilliant operator. He was a former commercial pilot for Delta, Will Snook, the founder, and he'd put tremendous amount of infrastructure in place. They were doing their own manufacturing of parking blocks, and I could go. I mean, I could talk I could talk for hours about safety products. The funniest thing I think about it was that they had hit this glass ceiling where like they couldn't get past like $3 million a year, and they couldn't figure out why. And besides the fact that the website just looked like absolute garbage and was like near impossible to use, there was one belief that I believe was probably the largest limiting factor for them, and that was Will, the founder. He believed in paid search vehemently, and his belief, and I think this was maybe just because of like the pilot in him, like it takes a certain type of person and personality to be like a commercial pilot, was he was like, well, I'm not going to click on any of these links that aren't running advertisements, because if they're not paying to be here, I don't trust them. I want the companies that are paying for the ads, because those are the most trustworthy. And so he only ever clicked on ads, and he believed that other people, his customers, only ever clicked on ads. And as anybody in search will tell you, about 2.5% of the total clicks are going to go to the ads. And so sort of um, removed a bunch of the roadblocks that had really been keeping that site from being able to rank for all of these very bottom of funnel terms, and got to do it at like sort of the right time, where the intent for traffic cones, the keyword back then, was still very informational. So like it was Wikipedia ranking number one, and then it was a comic strip from the 90s ranking number two, and then it was some guy's Tumblr who had the largest collection of traffic cones in the world. Like it was not yet a commercial query. And so sort of being there, at the advent of when the intent shifted over to being a shopping query, that was like really the big moneymaker for a while. It was traffic cones was sort of the what allowed us to open up that company into digital, and really grow the product catalog. And at one point we were selling 1 million traffic cones a month.
Wow. So what kind of informational content were you targeting for traffic cones, and what were people searching to buy that?
So people weren't really buying online. It was that thing where like you called around, like maybe you could like at the time like Staples had like little plastic ones, and
Mm.
learning about like there's all these different types of compliance, and like you need 7 pounds for certain types of roads and 10 pounds for others, and you're an 18
Okay.
inch it works, but you need a 28 inch, and it has to be orange or green, like all of this stuff that that we learned, that like this information wasn't really out there. And so being one of the first real direct to consumer platforms for safety products in general, I think really gave us a big leg up. I got to deploy a lot of different strategies on that site. So again, like my background was all building content management systems, and so that site was all built homegrown. When I got there, it was .NET 3.5 running on web forms, on IIS like 5 or 6, like ancient. So even just moving it to an MVC stack and getting it off of web forms, and being able to rewrite friendly URLs, and implement an actual like category and subcategory URL and information architecture. Like I got to really, because it was completely homegrown, I got to like have my heyday in the way that I designed the IA, and got to just go after all of these different query classes and modifiers, and like it sort of self-scaled for a while. I was one of the first. I don't want to take too much credit, but I feel like I was early on in terms of like really using category pages as like an informational guide, and so like building buyer's guides, like deep buyer's guides with tons of photography and tons of information on the category pages, was how we began to rank for all these big head terms, and then started doing some really fun link building stuff around self-driving cars, and finding opportunities to donate tons of products to colleges, and it was like real tactical kind of guerrilla stuff, which was a
Mm.
lot of fun. I mean, that's why like I learned so much about ecom from being super in this ecom business, that it was sort of just a natural extension to start consulting with other e-commerce companies on SEO and UX and eventually everything else.
Oh, that's awesome. Talk to me about a bit about those category pages then. So you mentioned you filled with information. I'm assuming that was also linked to the products then within the category
Exactly.
pages.
Yeah. So like we would do like creating like like an in content sub navigation for all the subcategories, and then like linking, having like the best sellers, be sort of highlighted on there, and
Mm.
starting to use the opportunity on that category page to explain the use cases to people. So folks may be there and they may not be sure what they want, or why they want what they want, or what they might need, depending on if they're buying for a municipality or a police station or a fire station or a school or their neighborhood.
Mm.
And so actually just like getting to learn how to merchandise, the products to not only drive conversions from a sales perspective, but also in many ways, but really having a very positive impact on SEO. So like you think of like a query class for traffic cones as traffic cones, and then there's two sort of lineages of modifiers. You've got colors: orange, blue, green, yellow, and then you've got sizes, right? 12-inch, 18-inch, 28-inch, 36-inch. And so creating the URL architecture in a way that we could support both of those modifiers separately and also together, and putting some rules in place around which attributes of the products were actually going to be indexable. So knowing like size and color both needed to be indexable attributes, but weight didn't actually really have any search impact. So we wanted to make sure that like we needed to be able to accommodate weight as a product attribute, like a drop down, so you can buy that SKU, but we didn't
Mm.
want that to actually take up any of the crawl budget because there was no search impact. So got to design like some pretty slick functionality within that custom CMS that I hadn't really seen before. And I think a lot of times, if you're able to be a first mover, especially in SEO, where it's like this is how like this you can see the forest through the trees, and just because it's not possible in Shopify or WordPress or Magento, is not necessarily a good enough reason to not find a way to
Mm.
make it happen.
Is that site still running now?
Yeah, yeah, traffic safety. I mean, if you Google traffic cones right now, I don't know if they're still ranking as highly as they were when I was there. 'Cause I exited in 2017 to run FTF full time. But yeah, I mean, when I left, we were the SEO powerhouse. So we out for every product category that we had products in. We outranked Lowe's, Home Depot, Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy. Just
Oh,
went,
damn.
it was the site. And I think a lot of ways is because people didn't want to buy, like you don't want to buy traffic cones from Lowe's. Like what the hell do they know? And there was like
Yeah.
some real, like a lot of the content was developed to really try to be experts around these products.
Oh, that's awesome. We're going to touch on some of that, I guess, expertise a little later on. But I wanted to change tact a little bit to your membership site and maybe how affiliate niche builders or people who have their own websites could potentially leverage the use of a membership. Obviously, selling affiliate products and maybe even one-off digital products is great. You make the sale, but you don't have that monthly recurring revenue that people are after. And some people are after maybe a little more, I guess, safety in terms of their revenue coming
Totally
in. So
predictable revenue.
yeah, so maybe touch on, I guess, how you grew your membership site, maybe even just some like tips and tricks that maybe affiliate site builders can think about.
It's just funny. It's funny to think back, because like the ideas, like the very first idea for Traffic Think Tank was this concept that, so I had created an SEO blog with a dumb name, but I was able to like get some rankings that were important enough. So like for probably 6 months, I ranked number 3 for keyword research. Like it was like Moz SEO book, I think even back then potentially, and then my stupid blog, and that was the first real instance where it's like I'm getting this traffic, and I'm not doing anything with it really. Like there's maybe an affiliate link here or there, but the idea came about. So like the advent of Traffic Think Tank started back with like that keyword research post, and I was like, I should try creating a product, but I didn't know where to begin. I never created a course. It seemed like this daunting task. And the thing that I think is really important to understand is people don't steal business ideas; they steal business models. And that's exactly what I did. I saw an ad. I was on Nathan Barry, who's now very famous for ConvertKit, but this was before ConvertKit was ever even an idea. Back then, he was just writing these ebooks on like app design, and I was interested in it. Because I had been in the application development, but not the mobile side of it before Traffic Safety Store, and so I was on his email list, and I got this email, and it was like, learn how to design a mobile app in 10 days for $100, and it's one email per day for 10 days. And I was like, oh fuck, you can do that? I was like I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if I could just like I can write emails. Like that seems really easy. That's like it's a bunch of blog posts. So I had this idea to create a course called Master Keyword Research in 7 days, and it was going to be 7 emails. And I put it up for $27 and hit my email list from my blog at that point, and sold some. And I kept getting requests though at this point. People were like, "Hey, can you just put this all into a PDF?" I was like, "Well, that seems really easy. Sure." So I put it all into a PDF. It was like maybe 70 pages. Um, Jacked the price up to $67, and like um, wrote an announcement blog post that this thing was now available as a course. And back then inbound.org was still in existence, and it got voted up on there, and voted up on Growth Hackers, I think, potentially even, and ended up selling like 3,000 some copies of this thing. And the money from the product was great, but what was really great was the fact that like I built the whole course on top of SEMrush and used affiliate links throughout the course. And anybody who's an affiliate in the SEO space knows that SEMrush is one of few companies that pays recurring commissions. And so like I just built this beautiful, sustainable revenue stream, like kind of by accident. And then after I sold the blog, that revenue stream stayed in place, and just I sort of let that slowly die. And one thing that I had noticed over the years that was sort of operating was that I would get a lot of questions. Not surprising, like people would buy this course, and I would get responses, and those responses sort of fell into two buckets. And it was like, hey, like can like I've got questions on this thing or this thing or this thing. Like, would you be able to answer these? And like at the time I had gotten invited to join this like brand new startup called Clarity, from Dan Martell, as like an SEO expert. They just didn't have like somebody to speak on SEO. So I was like, sure, like here it's like, $1 a minute or whatever. So like I started doing paid calls, that eventually would turn into like consulting engagements. And then on the other flip side of it, I had people who would buy the course, go through the first two chapters, and be like, Jesus, fuck, like this is way too much. Like, can I just pay you to do this for me? And at the time, I was full time at TSS at this point in time. So I was like, I mean, I've got this course. I might as well train somebody else on how to do this, and just I'll pay them, and I'll charge more money and sell it as a product. And that's where like the keyword matrix piece came from. So like these things were sort of all falling in place. And I had this idea at one point where I was like, I wonder if like I could try like a cohort based course. Like, could I do this course thing on a bigger level? And that's where the idea for Traffic Think Tank came from in 2017. But I didn't want to create all the content, because I was like, I'm lazy when it comes to product development. Like, I want to sell it before it exists, and if people pay for it, then I'll create it. And so I came up with this idea. I was like, okay, I'm going to make this 12-month thing. So like Traffic Think Tank in the first version was a 12-month like a membership that you joined, and it was $500 a month or $1,000 a month, and you got access to a Kajabi install that I created, and I would do a webinar once a month for like an hour and a half, and I was just available for asking questions. And about 6 months in, I was like, man, like this, like I got a bunch of feedback that the price point was too high, and it was lots of like little simple questions, and I was like, man, this would really be great if I like had a repository, and I could just answer these questions in a way that was like organized, and then people could just sort of join this thing. And so I had the idea. So it's funny now because like it's so obvious. Like you're like, oh, you've got a paid Slack community. People are like, of course. Like I've heard about that for like that's been a thing for 5 years. But there were not paid Slack communities yet. That was not a thing. Like it didn't exist. And so I tapped two of my buddies at the time, Ian Howes and Matthew Barbie, and I was like, hey guys, I want to try creating this community and like I want to charge money for it. And they were both like, you're fucking crazy. Like nobody's gonna pay me in a Slack group. Like this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And so we set it up. It was a single landing page. We had like we created posts within Slack, which is like the worst like textual piece of functionality ever. They're garbage. They still don't work. And like we like created these big posts, and like anytime we'd have like a big thread or we would record a video, we would just add it into these posts and like tried to put them into topics, and like we shoehorned essentially like a learning management system into Slack. Bare bones too. And so like the very first time we were like, all right, let's open this up for 100 people and we'll see what happens. And I emailed my list and Matt emailed his list, and all of a sudden we had a company, we had this, in 2 months, 3 months, we were, doing 10 grand, 20 grand a month. And then we're like, let's open it up again, I guess, to another 100 people. Cause we don't know how much time this is going to take. We don't know what the moderation is going to need to be like we don't know what the lifetime, like we didn't know anything. So did another like 100-person opening, and then we were at like 30 grand a month, and it was like, shit, there's like something here. And if anybody listening, man, wants like a lot more details on exactly sort of what that fumbling like test launch process was, I wrote like a really big, like detailed sort of perspective on like growing Traffic Think Tank to like its first 30 grand. And I think over the course, I think it was like 10 months, on indiehackers.com. And then, from there, we like just sort of kept experimenting, realized that Slack is a terrible place for an LMS, and we had to actually like build a website with an academy in it and add a bunch of custom functionality, and started to stitch together this real thing. And it's been kind of an amazing journey in the fact that TTT launched on Slack in 2018. Here we are in 2022, and it's maybe 800, 900 members, something like that. And there's a lot of people that have been there the whole time, and there's a lot of businesses that have been bought and sold in that community, and businesses, like people have partnered up and created companies. And it's been like I don't know, it puts me in awesome times that like because we don't make the community. Like we just had this dumb idea and like tried this thing, and it's like the people that are there that make it so valuable. Like I learn shit every week in there from people that are way smarter than I am. And so the idea of like, if you're an affiliate or a course creator and you want to find a way to create more recurring income, like if you like, I still am a big proponent in like niching down, right? So like if you've got a really tight niche, I don't mean like, oh, we've got I've got an affiliate blog for dogs, and like like I'm talking 2 steps beyond that. Like there's an affiliate pet for dogs, like that's not niche. We've got an affiliate site just for golden retrievers, still not niche yet. Like we've got an affiliate site for golden retrievers that have arthritis, like that have health problems, or that are champion bloodlines, or that are overweight, like whatever. Like that's the level of niche that I'm talking about, where like it's hyper specialization. Like if you're willing to go all the way down to that level, like there's almost always a community aspect there. Like people want access to probably you and your information, and like they're willing to pay a monthly fee for that. Like especially like pets is a great one just because of the emotional attachment component. So like like if I know, like I've got 2 Rottie crossbreed dogs, and like I would pay $29 a month in a heartbeat to like have access to people who are constantly sharing with me toys, diets, exercise ideas, tips for vets, like preventative health measures. Like it probably is even easier if it's about human children as opposed to canine children. But I think people are scared to try to launch these things because they don't think anybody will pay for them, or they think it won't work. And there's a bunch of times it probably won't work, but like you're only going to find the thing that does work if you are willing to fall on your face a bunch of times first.
Yeah, I think so. From my side, I've been toying around with the idea of doing membership. I sell courses and training programs for combat sport athletes, so physical preparation for combat sports. And so I sell these one-off things, and I've been toying around like, would I do a membership? So I have a question for you around that. how do you figure out what you're going to offer that's going to reduce your churn and actually keep them in there? Because for me, right, I'm like, okay, I've got these courses and stuff. People buy them, seem to love what I've got, so I'd offer those as part of the membership. But then how would I keep them? I mean, yeah, I could do maybe some live Q&As or something, maybe once a month or twice a month. But then
These are
outside
the
of that,
things that we've always had
like
to figure out, right? So we
yeah,
meet Matt and Ian do a live Q&A every month. That's not enough to keep people in there.
yeah,
We usually we're publishing anywhere between 3 and 4 new courses from other expert creators that we're hiring and paying. That's not enough to even keep people in there. We've
mm,
got a head of content programming as a full-time employee. We've got a community manager. We've got 5 advocates that are all paid. Like it's people don't realize on the surface. Like we learned this because right, like the first 12 months or so, it was like churn, like the acquisition rate was fantastic. We were growing 10% month over month, but churn was like 6 or 7%. And like any churn over 4% is the death spiral. Like you're eventually just going to churn into nothingness. And so it was constantly trying to figure out like what else do we need to add? What other value can we provide? So like there's all of these discounts that we've worked out with like a lot of the tool providers. So like there's perks that like are available for members and um trying to like help people use it to find gigs or buy or sell websites or domains, find new jobs, make like it's become this whole ecosystem. But there is no good answer. I guess that was the thing. It was just like
mm.
we just had to continuously try to add more and more and more value until we found some level of stickiness and we're able to get that churn rate down under 4%.
Do you think that comes down to the price as well, the subscription
I think
price?
part of it is the price, right? So like we've got people in there that are just starting out as affiliates or freelancers and 120 bucks a month for access to the Slack group and the academy is a lot of money for these people. So we've started doing more scholarships that we'll give away 6 months or 12 months for and do sort of giveaways a couple times a year. Um, but the other flip side of it is like for anybody who's in-house or is at an agency or owns an agency, the and this is not my words, but people will have begun to start to characterize a TTT membership as like an SEO insurance plan. And that's exactly where I want to be. That's the perfect characterization. Like I want us to be the first line of defense if you need help. Like you don't necessarily need to be in there, but like
Mm,
like crap, like I am doing this audit for this client or I have this idea for my website at the company I work in-house at, and like before I go do these things and put anything to risk because they're a big idea or it's a really big migration or it's an expensive digital asset and PR campaign, to like just being able to have that sounding board, I think is probably the most valuable part. And like that's my hunch is like if you were going to launch a community, it would be similar. Like it's probably people that just they're happy to pay and be a member of that community, even if they don't necessarily participate in like monthly events or
mm.
they're not consuming your content, because if you're able to create a plate like a safe space for them to ask questions. And like I can see you running tracks around like here's specific diets for bulking up, here's diets for like bone recovery and muscle recovery, here's things that like if you're going to play in the wet season or the cold season, here's tips for layering, like all of the lifestyle components and health components, and like all of those could also have affiliate pull off all of them,
Mm.
finding partners and sponsors and people that want to be in front of your audience. So that was the one big thing I think that we did right. And we didn't know that like out from the outset that we were going to do this way. It was just a very deliberate decision that we ended up making, which is like there are no affiliate links inside of Traffic Tank anywhere in the Academy or in Slack. Like other people can't even share them. Like that shit is scrubbed out, does not exist. We can't play favorites with tools. Like we all use different tools. Like me and the other partners, we all pay for a whole bunch of the SEO tools, and like we can like make recommendations. And people are like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing. Like I'm looking for this feature, this functionality. But we decided a long time ago that like we need to be the unbiased third party. Like that's the
Yeah.
only way it makes sense, right? Because I think where a lot of the community, like the communities I've seen that have come up and died, mostly inside of 12 months, is because they don't make the deep investment in sustaining trust within that community.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. And I think as well, it's almost like people they come for the information and stuff, but then they almost just stay for the community aspect, right? The idea that
I mean, we hope
they can
so.
talk to all the different people. Yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. Let's move a little bit towards your SEO I guess some of your SEO knowledge here. So transitioning a little bit from the membership site here, you had a case study on your site a while ago about the concept of increasing your keyword spread. Do you want to maybe just jump into that, maybe define keyword spread and what it is and how you do it?
The concept I think you're talking about is like the idea of like how do you expand the total landscape of keywords that you rank for. So it's like
Yeah.
without necessarily creating new content, like how do you rank just for more keywords? And the answer is actually relatively simplistic. It's funny. There's two real ways I've seen it effectively deployed, like expansion strategy, and one is by changing a lot of the anchors that if you're actively building links to your existing content, changing the anchor spread and the modifier spread, that's being used for a lot of those anchors to change some of the inbound relevancy and association. But one of my favorites, and something that's funny enough, I talked about it today in Traffic Think Tank, and I talked about it on a phone call yesterday. So it's funny that you're asking, and it's using Google Search Console data specifically for existing content as like a leading indicator where, if you're in the URL report in GSC and you click into the queries tab and you can begin to see like, all right, cool. Here's like, I know that all of these topics that I'm seeing impressions and clicks for are covered in there, but you start like they're more than you even might imagine. You start to see terms, modifiers, other topics that are tangential or horizontal to what the topic of the URL is. But you'd be like, man, I don't think I mentioned that anywhere inside that post. And you go back and you do a control F and it's like, no, I actually don't say those words anywhere. And and like Google is telling me that like they find this post relevant, this page relevant for these terms that I'm not actually talking about. So they're in that wheelhouse. So like what would happen if I were to add a new section header, like a new H2, H3 section, if it fits in and just speak to this topic and add a paragraph. And you can pick up an extra 50 to 100 terms that you're now getting impressions and have a chance to get organic clicks from that, and you can just continue doing it. It's kind of it's like a stupid simple expansion strategy that I don't think enough people do. I'm also really surprised there's not a tool yet. Like I don't know how somebody hasn't like taken Sightliner, like something that does like a content scrape and index tool, and just paired that up with like a GSC integration to like automate the suggestion of like additional keywords you should be targeting.
Yeah. Would you then go in and edit an article if it was ranking number one for your target keyword then?
I mean, if there was additional terms, that were relevant that I just wasn't covering, but they added value, like I think that's probably the hardest thing to teach. And like I have no idea how to teach this, but like teaching SEOs in any capacity, like what how to identify and then stick to the intent of a specific term. Because like it's extremely common for me to get hit up in the affiliate channel in TTT and for somebody to be like, hey, like I've got all of these posts and I've got all this content depth around these topics, but I'm not ranking for like this is the term I really want to go after and I can't rank for it. And you go and you look at what they're writing and it's like, and it feels a bit off. And then you go and you look at what's ranking, it's like, oh, the intent's completely different. They're literally providing like solutions to this problem, and you're talking about what it is and how it works, and why you would do it. Like, and it's just like it's such a simple nuance, like such a slight nuance, but so important. And I like that. I don't know how to solve for that problem. Like how you can teach people. Like that's actually like the query intent. Like you're missing the query intent completely. Another great way to think about it is so. There's this playbook that still exists in a lot of SEO, or especially the affiliate verticals, where it's like, hey, we wrote this big post and it did well for a while, but now we're sort of seeing slippage on the rankings, and we've built links to it, but we're not going to adjust any of the additional like the content that's in there. We're not going to refresh it. We're just going to add more. And now your post, that was 1,800 words and ranked in position 3. Now it's 2,400 words and it's position 8. And then it's 3,600 words and it's page 2. And then it's 4,500 words. And you're wondering, like, these people are like, why the hell? Like, look at how long it is. I've got more depth than everybody else, and I've got all these links. And it doesn't make any sense. It's like, well, actually, to match the semantic intent of the queries that you're trying to rank for, you actually like only need 1,200 words to do that. And like these are the topics that you need to cover within your topic model, and you've diluted it so much that like no wonder it doesn't rank for anything. It's like it's no longer not relevant for that query. It's not relevant for any of the other queries that you've now added into it to stack onto it. Like one of my favorite examples was we were working with this website in the student loan space, and they had a post that was really important. It was targeting like student loan refinance versus consolidation. Really, really like great top of funnel, like awareness term for them. Great volume, very competitive. And they had like a 2,200 word post on there. And we went and looked at the topic model. And it's like, man, this is a super objective topic model. And like what they were doing was like, it was like, what is student loan refinance? What is student loan consolidation? Why would you do these two things? When would you do? And I was like, this is actually not the intent that query is looking for. The query is like the exact intent is the query is just, what is the difference? Like, this is this and this is that, not what, why, when, how, who, but like just what
Like a
does this
table
mean and what
comparison.
exactly. And we
Yeah.
chopped this post from like 2,800 words down to like 600, and it shot from like position 8 to position 2 with no other changes, because like it was now a better result for the query. And I think that
Mm.
that gets lost on a lot of folks, especially folks new to affiliate. Like, you can absolutely shoot yourself in the foot and create too much content for a specific topic. Not too much content in terms of depth. Like, I think content depth
Yeah.
is probably one of the most important considerations now at like the site level. But I do mean like too much content at like an individual URL level.
Yeah, I think it gets drilled into us as we start. Like, you need to create posts at 1,000 words minimum. You need to cover, everything you can. So instead of addressing the query, you start with, as you mentioned, what is it? How is it
Yeah.
this? When,
How
blah
do
blah. And
you
then,
how are you just like, how do you actually provide value? Like, how are you a good
yeah,
result for what that person is looking for?
yeah, exactly. Instead of answering the question or query straight away, and then maybe covering some of the other topics if you need to, versus covering like the history of whatever it is and stuff. And people, I don't, I didn't come here for that.
It's like, you look at like the example of like, the democratization of about.com, where like about.com got destroyed, and they hired Marshall Simmons, so it's not surprising that it went incredibly well. But like, somebody who understood topical authority and the separation of intent between different queries and splintered intent, and they came in and they cut about.com up into like 22 different sites and just took all of the topical silos and moved them into like a domain level topicality, and all of those sites have been massive successes ever since.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to touch on as well a meme you posted on Twitter, and it was, I think it was actually Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, wasn't it? Oh no, maybe this was before that, but it was someone
Yeah.
slapping someone, and it was the idea is that there's no such thing as a do follow link. Now, do you want to
Yeah.
maybe expand on that a bit?
Yes, I mean, like that. It's just a factual statement, right? It's like the saying like, "Do follow links exist?" is like saying dragons exist. It's just, there's no argument. It's not real. And like, I understand that like the nomenclature was created because people needed an antithesis to a no follow link, but the opposite of a no follow link is a followed link. And like, all links are followed unless they're no followed. So like, the reason I think it is so dangerous is because it's HTML that we're talking about, right? It is syntax, and like CSS and HTML and PHP and Ruby on Rails. Like these are languages. Like the words I'm speaking right now, they have meaning because there's a syntax behind those meaning. And as soon as you create a new word that has a syntax parameter, like, you break it apart. Like, I can't tell you the amount of websites I now see where I see rel equals do follow, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like, this is the actual issue. And Ahrefs is the worst. They're persisting it. I give Tim Solo shit about this. I give him shit about this constantly. I'm like, you got to get rid of this, man. Like, it's just wrong. It's not a real term. It's followed and no followed. It would be like saying, oh no, I'm like, I don't want a no smoking room. I would like a do smoking room, please. Like, no, it's smoking and no smoking. It's follow and no follow. But yeah, that's a hill that I would die on.
So it's more of a, I guess, a definition of terms then as well. So instead of
It's
it,
syntax though, right? It's like
yeah,
it's like making up HTML. It's like, well, I don't want to use P tags anymore, so I'm going to call them Q tags. I wonder why they don't work though. Like, it's like there are places for creativity, and then there's places for syntax. And like, when you're talking about a standardized language, especially like the language of the internet, HTML, like when people start introducing fake shit, it hurts everybody.
yeah, no, fair enough. I wanted to also touch on another, I guess, thread that you made. It was around authorship for affiliate sites. Obviously, I guess recently people have jumped on the bandwagon of Eat, just because of the vast number of Google updates and people getting penalized, and people, I guess, thinking and believing they need to build that expertise and authority and trust within their blog so they don't get hit by these updates. So what's your opinion on that regarding EAT? And then what's your process regarding what you've called like essentially authorship?
I think that authorship in most of the verticals that you would care about, especially as an affiliate, is table stakes. Like I think Google has become incredibly proficient at being able to understand what knowledge graphs look like for actual humans versus personas. This is coming from somebody that like we had built a massive store of personas at the agency at one point. Like I still to this day, like we've got a couple personas that have thousands of bylines around the internet. We've got one woman in particular who gets job offers on a weekly basis from LinkedIn. She doesn't exist. She's not a real person. Um, and like that, I think that used to work in a lot of ways. But I also think now like Google knows what a real person looks like who's writing on the internet. Like they probably have a LinkedIn account, a Twitter account, a Facebook profile, or an Instagram profile, and there's probably other sites that they're writing for, and they're probably using the same name, and they're probably writing comments, and all of these things that I think Google is now able to connect together in terms of like their web of links, and create footprints around authors. And especially, you start to look at like how entities exist within the knowledge graph, and I think that extends very much to authors in a lot of ways. Maybe not one for one, but I think that especially in any of the YMYL verticals, like you need to have somebody that has a depth of expertise that's been writing about these things for a while, or ideally even has credentials. Like it's going to be really hard, in my opinion, to rank certain types of content in the legal vertical unless it's a paralegal or a lawyer that has credentials that's writing about it. It's going to be hard to rank for things around heart health and recommendations around high blood pressure unless you're a cardiologist. I don't think that like there's too much at risk now by any schmo being able to go online and write stuff that is just factually inaccurate, and there's it's almost like I think of it as like if Theranos was an affiliate site at this point, right? Like it's like they were hurting and endangering people's lives by just bullshitting these critical results around people's health, and these blood panels, and it's very similar in that same respect. So we've adapted it to our process, and finding subject matter experts not only to write, but then also finding credentialed experts that we're able to hire to review and lend their credentials to the authorship profiles of our sites. I think is a critical item at this point.
So how do you build these personas and how deep do you go? I mean, you mentioned
I
you might
don't
build,
anymore. Don't
you
build the
don't?
personas anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean,
In the
just go
past
pretty
then.
deep, right? So like we would used to like would use like like this person doesn't exist.com, like use some AI basis to create the face, and then hire graphic designers, find a bunch of open source pictures, royalty free pictures, and transpose like that person's face that's not a real person into a bunch of other scenes, create their social profiles, schedule the RSS to tweet and schedule tweets between different accounts, create their LinkedIn profile, create a job history. The one that I'm speaking of specifically, our one persona that has all these bylines. She has her own website. Like she has her
Wow.
own website. It's about recruiting and hiring and business process, which is mainly what she writes about. Anytime she would publish a new article as a guest post somewhere else, that byline would get added to her like about page and press page, just like you would expect from a normal person. Like she has a better website than I think a bunch of the actual real
But
like
they're real
freelance
people do.
writers that I know. Um, and we did that for a while because uh, we needed to be able to write at least as an agency, we needed to be able to write content in like sort of specific topic verticals, but they needed to be able to be sort of client agnostic, and that just doesn't really work as well anymore. And now part of the sometimes tough conversations we have to have with clients is like, hey, like who is going to be the face of your brand? Like who are your content writers going to be? Like we can hire, like, we can build a freelance staff. You can outsource to any number of these great content production sort of factories, but we still need somebody's name and face to put over
Mm.
top of this. And, it gets much more difficult to deliver results if you've got clients that are going to be, against, using real people.
Interesting. I think you mentioned before the podcast about setting up authorship on sites that maybe got hit by Google updates and things to help recover them. Was that something you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest, so like, um, especially through like just, I mean, last year was like a whirlwind of core algo updates, and A lot of the sites that I saw get hit that did, were able to recover usually in 30 to 60 days in most instances. It was the implementation of authorship into their post, and credentialing out those author profile pages and connecting them to social profiles and adding real bios, and also like trimming a lot of the fluff. I think there was also just, I think one of the updates last year took a much bigger toll on cannibalization across different posts and topics, on the same domain. Whereas there was another one, I think that hit a lot of folks on the authorship front. And then we saw ones around product review content, and a lot of the product review sites that got hammered in December or November, like the ones that have come back, like they've put teams in place, or they've doxed, like they've introduced real authorship, and or they've stopped using manufacturers images and had to actually buy the product. And like it's harder to be a cheap or a low budget marketer or affiliate than it was, but it's for the betterment of the internet. Like the like this product review content, the stuff that we're reading, the information we're digesting, like it is improving it. And whether or not that's Google's purpose, I mean, their purpose is to make as much money as possible. And I don't think that they're altruistic in that sense. But it is, and I'm not a Google fanboy in that respect. I love them for the amount of money they've been able to help me create over my life. But their propaganda machine is one of the most effective in the world, and
Mm.
they don't do what they say you're supposed to do, even themselves. But that was one thing that I think they finally started to get right.
Yeah, I think it's almost like for people who are maybe doing their own affiliate sites as a way to get people to maybe leverage their own skills as well. Like myself, like I guess my career job before doing some of this was working in professional sport as a strength and conditioning coach. So for me, I was able to leverage, I see the results on my sites. I'm able to leverage my expertise in that regard with my own personal profiles, things I've written all over the internet, versus maybe some other sites and some other niches that don't have authorship. The content, you can tell the content isn't quite, it doesn't come from someone who's really in that
Yeah.
area, and you can see the difference. And you can see the difference in the rankings too. Like you go on Google and you read something and you can tell this person just kind of rewrote what was already on Google.
Or just they paid $30 to a writer on Upwork, and they
Yeah.
were like, "Hey, here's the articles that are ranked number one. Just push these all together." And I do think, like, yes, it's making it more difficult for affiliates to earn a living, but I think it's for good cause, right? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
sure like you probably have strong feelings on the way that you would approach strength, like making recommendations around strength and conditioning
Mm.
training, versus somebody that has no idea whatsoever, no formal training, no experience, and they're just trying to sell some fitness equipment from Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've got posts that go completely against what's in the search. People saying to do this, I'm saying not to. And because I think my content offers a different viewpoint but covers the same things in a different way, I get to rank further up essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the exact right way to approach it, like conceptually in my mind. It's like I don't
Mm,
like I am a big I'm a big believer in matching content type, but like you're saying, it's like this is what's ranking, but I actually don't believe in that.
yeah,
And I don't believe in it because I have this expertise. I actually have this
yeah.
background. And so I'm going to tell my story and the people that matter. And over time, like, in terms of just looking at like heuristics and qualitative signaling from Google, like over time, the clicks, the time to long click, there are going to be enough metrics that build in your favor if you're doing things the right way.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned about having people like review, I guess experts review your posts. So um, obviously you see it when you go into many like Healthline, all the big medical site stuff. They have
Yeah.
medically reviewed by doctor, whoever it is. How do you go about that, and how legit is that actually?
I mean, so that's I'm sure there's people that are out there that are making up personas, or they're using themselves and they're just adding acronyms, initials behind their name to try to create
Yeah.
credentials. And I don't think that shit really works anymore. I mean, I've found a lot of the medical reviewers, legal reviewers, any of those verticals where like having those credentialed experts really is important from an authorship perspective. I found them either from like Googling like the keywords that we're trying to rank for, and finding folks that are like, it's not the owner of the site or like employee at the company, but people who are freelance writers guest posting that do have those credentials and reaching out to them directly, or putting posts on Upwork. I mean, there are doctors and trainers and veterinarians and cardiologists and neurologists. Like, these people are on Upwork, believe it or not. Like, you may have to pay, like you may pay $30 to have the article created, and then you may have them review it, and you may have to pay another $30 to have it rewritten, and you're still paying them $50 for them just to read it and review it to use their credentials. So, like, again, it's not the cheap fly-by-night content production warehouses anymore, but if you're going to rank for some of these incredibly lucrative terms, especially the health terms, I think you should have to make that investment in accuracy and credentialed, like, accuracy from credentialed experts.
That's interesting. And you wouldn't a random thought, you wouldn't be able to leverage that in, I guess in topics that don't need it. For example, I don't know if you could maybe try and boost the authority of your article by having maybe some kind of credential expert. Say, for example, you mentioned dog training. You could have it reviewed by, I don't know, maybe an expert or professional dog trainer.
I think that would help. Yeah, like not only would it potentially help with some of the SEO signaling, like that's absolutely going to help with the authenticity and the trust factor. Like, it's going to be easier, in my opinion, if you're trying to build links to a dog post on training dogs by a dog trainer than it is to a post about dog training from somebody who is a barista at Starbucks.
Yeah, no, fair call. I know you mentioned one of your medically reviewed, so I don't know if you are able to, or if you want to share maybe the niche in one of them, but maybe detail some of the differences between, I guess, working in a niche like that, like your medical one, versus maybe a typical affiliate site.
Yeah, I mean, so like we were talking a little bit about CBD, and what was really fascinating about CBD is because there are so many applications for CBD at this point, right? There's anxiety, there's depression, there's pain, there's like back pain, sciatica. There's CBD oil for dogs with depression, dogs with anxiety, dogs with aggression, dogs back pain, CBD for horses, CBD for cats. Like, because there are so many, in the CBD site that I work on, is, we've had to find all of these different experts. And so like we've got, CBD oil for sleep, and it's a sleep coach or a sleep professional, like a neurologist, or we've got CBD oil for high blood pressure, and it's a cardiologist, that's the reviewer, versus one for horses and dogs, and it's a veterinarian, versus one for anxiety, and it's a therapist. And so, like, there is, like, the blended health line does the same thing. Like, it's matching the content expertise, like the expertise that would make sense for that content specifically, to the credentials of the expert that you have, lending their authorship. And I mean, we're seeing more and more dual authorship too. Where you're saying, like, the post written by, and then, this person, and then medically reviewed by this person.
Okay. And what are you linking out to then when you're, say, medically reviewed by this person? Are you linking to like their LinkedIn to show some kind of
I mean, that's the thing is, when I say dual authorship, like in a lot of cases, so, WordPress has built-in authorship into core. And the nice part about it is it's a PHP echo statement. So, like, if you want to add a second author to a post, you go into the single post template or the CPT, you just add an additional author. You set your primary author and your secondary author, you change which one appears first or second, if they have headshots or not. And then the one thing that is really fascinating is watching how authorship is being done very differently. So, like, I've seen authorship where you've got the author's profile at the top or the bottom of the post, or the sidebar, whatever, and the author's name links to an about page, and the about page is their full bio, and like that has links to social profiles. Then I've also seen authorship, and the way that we do it is we link to the actual author profile page. So, .com/author/ the username, and on that page we've got the list of all of the posts that person has written, their full bio. We're linking to their LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, any other social profiles that we're able to, any other even publications that they write for. It's like the other thing too, I think, is, there's link equity sculpting using like the no follow attribute with, for potentially for internal links and definitely for external links. But at the same time, like, having followed external links has also been proven, as a positive ranking, like a correlated positive ranking factor. So, like, who you link to does actually matter almost as much as who links to you.
That's very interesting. I've kind of found that inadvertently. So a lot of my posts, because I'm involved in the sports science field and things like that, published research, whatever, I link out to a lot of, you could say Google Scholar, link out to a lot of published journal articles that I use to build out, essentially they're like literature reviews. And that's helped Well, I believe that's helped hugely for ranking pages because
I guarantee it helps.
I'm providing, evidence behind what I'm trying to say and etc. Not just kind of writing an opinion piece on something that should generally be more objective.
And then there's also like doing that the right way.
Yeah,
In
for
that,
sure.
like, if you're like, you're not just finding, it's not like Googling something and finding some like a story that has the statistics that back up your point and linking to them. It's
Yeah.
having the people who are doing the on-page optimization or your fact checkers spend the time to actually be like, all right, this study here on this New York Medicine Journal of Medicine, they're actually like, they didn't do the study, they're talking about it in this context. The study was actually done. They actually are linking over to this study that was done in Ireland, and that one was actually originally done in Europe before, like in the UK before that. So like actually finding the original source too, I think is like another one of those hurdles that can make a big difference. Especially
And reading the study. Because I know a lot of
actually
sites,
reading the study.
a lot of people just link to the, man, you see it on all the sites and you're like, I know you didn't read that, and it's just
You're actually linking to something that's completely contradictory to what you're claiming.
Yeah. Or it's the same sentence and link to a thing that all the other sites on the first page of Google are linking to. They're the same. So it's like, if you read that, you might be able to provide more information than just the same sentence that the other sites, are providing the same content essentially. I think we covered pretty much everything. Man, there's so much good information on here that hopefully the users or the listeners can take into account regarding membership sites and various authorship things. So is there anything else maybe you wanted to add, or if not, maybe where people can find you and follow you?
I mean, I definitely use Twitter way too much. Just Nick_Eubanks. My brand SERP has been completely destroyed by Nick Eubanks, the US football player.
I searched that and I was like, wait.
I used to have my whole brand SERP. I had a knowledge panel. It was beautiful. I had all of those links for a very long time, and I took it for granted. And then it took one star. I think he's a lineman or a tight end, but 1 star NFL player, and my brand search is destroyed. So, pretty easy to find on Twitter, and I'm always I spend time every day just talking SEO and strategy in TTT.
Oh, perfect. Well, thanks for coming on, Nick. I really appreciate it.
No, it was my pleasure, James. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Until the next episode, goodbye.